But let's be real. How many of us actually dare to set aside our current problems? How many of us dare to ditch the financial worries and ambitions to chase after something like poetry and the horizon? Chasing that horizon means stepping past the comfortable, stable life we crave to find a joy that comes from deep within our souls. As the brilliant novelist Somerset Maugham wrote in The Moon and Sixpence, most people don't become what they want to become, but what they have to become. The moon is the ideal. The sixpence is reality. So which one do you choose? Will you look up and chase the moon hanging high in the sky? Or will you keep your head down, grinding for the few bucks of reality? The answer, of course, is different for everyone. In a previous video, I talked about the book Walden. It's the true story of the writer Henry David Thoreau. At 28, he gave up a promising business career, turning his back on wealth and tossing it all aside. With just an axe, he went into the woods, built a log cabin, and lived alone by the beautiful Walden Pond. When some people hear this story, they say, "That's so selfish, just taking off to live your own life." In the real world, we have family, a spouse, kids, parents. We have responsibilities to deal with. You can't just do that. But on the flip side, many people were deeply inspired by Thoreau's story. They realized it was time to be their true selves, to live life at their own pace. Seeing these conflicting reactions made me wonder, what creates that divide? And how can each of us live a life with no regrets? And then, as I flipped through the pages of The Moon and Sixpence again, I found my answer. Today, I want to share it with you, hoping to offer a new perspective and insight for your own life choices. Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is the channel where we explore holistic self-development through great books. Today's video is called Your Perception is Your Reality, inspired by the classic novel The Moon and Sixpence by the celebrated British author Somerset Maugham. Let's dive in. 1. Your perception dictates the life you chase. Strickland, the main character of the story, is a stockbroker in London. He's got a job that pays well enough for his family to live comfortably in the city. He's married to a capable wife who manages the household, and they have 2 sweet, well-behaved kids. You could say Strickland had it all: a successful career, a comfortable income, a happy family, and a respected place in society. A life many would envy. But what nobody saw coming was that this middle-aged man, who everyone thought was quiet and a bit dull, would suddenly leave everything he had worked so hard for and take off to Paris, alone. He left behind nothing but a note, less than 10 lines long, telling his wife he wasn't coming back. At 40, Strickland coldly and heartlessly ditches his wife and kids for a hazy, uncertain dream to become a painter. In everyone else's eyes, he made a stupid, terrible decision. First, it was a mistake because he gave up a comfortable, stable life to go struggle in poverty. Living hand to mouth, Strickland poured all his time and energy into painting, completely ignoring basic needs like food and shelter. He'd take any odd job he could find to make a quick buck, and as soon as he had enough cash, he'd blow it all on oil paints and lock himself in his room to paint. His second mistake was that it was a foolishly risky blind gamble on an uncertain future. I mean, starting to paint at 18 might give you a shot, but he was a grown man chasing a childhood dream with no advanced skills, and he expected to become a great artist. To others, he was a total fool. Yet, he said, "You're the real fool. I told you, I have to paint. I can't help it." When a man falls into the water, it doesn't matter if he's a good swimmer or a bad one. He either thrashes around to get out or he drowns. So think about that for a second. Do you have to be a great swimmer to be allowed to swim? Do you have to have A, B, and C in place before you're allowed to follow a dream? So who's the fool? Him or the world? So many people out there measure their own choices by someone else's standards of success and benefit, spending their limited time enduring a life they don't even like. But a man who spends his finite life chasing a dream, regardless of success or failure, gain or loss, is that foolish or is it brave? The psychologist Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. But only those who dare to confront their own souls are the ones who awaken."
Strickland was definitely a man who dared to face his soul. He jumped out of his comfort zone and bravely pursued his dream. Are material things feather light or the ultimate prize? A treasure to be hoarded or a shoe to be thrown away? It's all up to you. How many people only take a timid glance at the moon before bowing their heads again to chase after the sixpence coins they need to survive? Here, the moon symbolizes the lofty ideals and grand goals in our souls. And the sixpence, a small value coin, represents the mundane, practical realities of life. We live in a world flooded with sixpence coins. Are we so attached to worldly desires that we keep our heads down, unable to look up? Are we like slaves to the clock, frantically racing against our limited time, tangled in a web of relationships, forgetting our original goals and becoming numb to who we were meant to be? If you only look down at the ground for a sixpence, you're going to miss the moon. But if you think Maugham is just feeding you some toxic self-help BS, you're underestimating him. The famous philosopher Schopenhauer once said, "The greatest prison is a person's own mind." What truly binds a person in life isn't their wealth, job, or family, but their perception. Different perceptions lead to different pursuits in life. Whether you're happy or not is entirely defined by you. The moon or the sixpence, whatever you choose, the ultimate value you receive is an answer that will come from your own heart. 2. Your perception determines your priorities. Strickland's wife came from a noble background and loved the high life. To her, life was supposed to be a calm, flowing river. But one day, a storm hit. Her husband left without a word, leaving a complete mess and shattering her peaceful reality. After 17 years together, the man she thought she knew best turned out to be a total stranger. And not because of an affair, but because of painting. He abandoned her and their kids, leaving her feeling utterly ashamed and humiliated. She was devastated, but she got her act together fast. With her support system gone, she had to stand on her own 2 feet. She quickly learned to type, rented out their house, sold their furniture, and moved into a small apartment. Life goes on. Through hard work, her career started to take off, and her children grew up to be successful. Eventually, she was able to move into a new apartment, quit her typing job, and rejoin the upper class. Why? Because in her mind, depending on others was dishonorable. The ultimate goal she pursued her entire life was to be self-reliant, to maintain a respectable, polished exterior, and to hold her head high. Different perceptions mean different priorities, and because of that, the direction of our efforts will also be different. As long as you are genuinely happy with what you're doing and pursuing, and there's no inner conflict or struggle, then there's no right or wrong in your choice. Your heart gives the final answer. Strickland put painting above all else. He did everything to make his dream a reality. His wife put social standing first, so she worked tirelessly to achieve her goal. You reap what you sow. And it's no coincidence that 2 people who lived together for 17 years grew so far apart. Their perceptions had become fundamentally different. A German philosopher once said something like, "I respect any independent soul. Though I may not agree with some, I can do my best to understand." Some people love the ethereal moonlight. Others prefer the tangible coin. Different perceptions may not mix well, but mutual respect is always the better path. You don't have to live cautiously in someone else's perception, but you also don't need to point fingers or criticize their way of life. There's no single ruler to measure life's priorities. As long as you face your own soul, live as your true self, and give it your all, that's the message the author wants to send. 3. Your perception determines how you treat others. There's another character in the novel, Dirk Stroeve, a painter not yet 30 but already balding. His painting skills were a bit clumsy, but he had an incredible eye for talent. He was the only one who could understand Strickland's paintings and went all out to help him. When Strickland fell gravely ill, Stroeve took him into his own home, even when his wife Blanche vehemently objected. Little did he know, he was letting the wolf into the henhouse. Blanche, despite her initial dislike for Strickland, fell for him, perhaps from the very first glance. While nursing him back to health, she fell deeply in love and wanted to be with him. Stroeve was heartbroken, but because he loved his wife and admired Strickland's talent, he chose to step aside, leaving him his home, hoping they would be happy together.
But surprise, surprise, it didn't take long for Strickland to dump Blanche. You might think Strickland was a real jerk, but ultimately it was because he and Blanche were not on the same page. They were chasing completely different things. Blanche was after a romantic love. She didn't care what the world thought, but she needed her lover by her side. In Strickland's heart, however, art was everything. He didn't want to waste time on romance, so he left. For him, two people with different perceptions and different goals could never be together forever. Back to Struve. He still loved his wife deeply, and when he heard the news, he hoped she would come back to him. But all his waiting led to a tragic end. Blanche killed herself over her lost love. Even so, Struve's love for his wife didn't diminish his admiration for art. He even invited Strickland to live with him in his homeland of Holland, an offer that was refused. You could say Struve was a good guy through and through. He was like the farmer in the fable who saves a frozen snake, only to be bitten. Once the wound heals, he forgets the pain and embraces the snake again. Struve was a walking contradiction created by God. He was short and fat, often mistaken for a clumsy, rich guy, but he was actually a painter with a keen artistic eye. His own paintings were uninspired, but he was an honest man, incapable of flattery. He was kind, generous, and big-hearted. He was mocked by his colleagues, but if they needed to borrow money, he'd help them in a heartbeat. He just lived to give and give without expecting anything in return. As the novel says, Struve was a noble and selfless man. Even his tragic end couldn't hide the greatness of his character. Some might say he was pathetic and naive, but others can understand his nobility. Different perceptions lead to different ways of treating people. Some people find joy in helping others with no strings attached, while others are selfish, only looking out for number one. But no matter how harsh life gets, there's always a place that belongs to you, a place where you can keep your clear conscience and your love for all things. How you see the world determines how you treat others. Whatever you do, follow your conscience, live fully, and give love. The takeaway. The book says it best. To do what you want, to live in the circumstances you prefer, in peace, quiet, and without conflict. A free life, by your own definition, is a life guided and illuminated by your own perception and spirit. Success or failure, everyone has their own definition. Different perceptions, different life choices. Some chase fame and fortune. Others desire a quiet, simple, free life. So how do we live a life with no regrets? Alfred Adler once said, "You are not here to live up to the expectations of others, and others are not here to live up to yours." Listen to your heart and choose the life you love. Isn't that the biggest win of all? A person's life isn't a narrow path that can be boxed in with words like success, failure, good, bad, right, or wrong. Everyone has their own way of living, and no one else has the right to interfere. There's no hierarchy of lifestyles as long as you love yours.
Van Gogh said, "Everyone has a fire in their heart, but the passers-by only see a wisp of smoke." Live for the fire in your heart, not for the smoke in someone else's eyes. Whether you're gazing at the starry sky or walking on the ground, live the way you want to live. As long as you feel no conflict within your heart, that's enough. And anyone who is always chasing their dreams is truly beautiful. Here's to you and to me. May we all live an amazing life, the life we want, and give it everything we've got. Thanks for listening. If you found this video helpful, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Support the channel by hitting that like button, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell to catch the latest videos. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.